course, it's been making international headlines after Kevin Spacey flew into Nantucket this morning for his court appearance on indecent assault and battery charges. He has pleaded not guilty in the alleged incident that happened in the summer of 2016.
So how strong is the evidence in this case, and where does it go from here? Boston defense attorney Phil Tracy joins us live in studio now. Phil, thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see you.
Great to be here. New year, but this is quite a case.
Quite a case. Spacey did not want to appear at this hearing today. Yeah. He said it would, quote, amplify the negative publicity already generated in connection with this case. The judge obviously rejected that request, given that Spacey was there today, and he said, no, you have to appear. Should he have had to appear, or does this create a circus, which will make it tough to get a jury?
He had to appear. That was the appropriate. He shouldn't get any special treatment. The question that's coming down the road is whether or not a move of the case, a change of venue, is in order, because of the fact that there will be a small island. That makes it even crazier with the publicity,
everyone
the
talks.
Cameras, so where he's going to be tried eventually on the mainland of Massachusetts, right. Berkshire County, possibly, but that would be an issue that's going to come up.
That's going to be big. Let's talk about what happened today. The defense requested that the judge give an order to preserve all of the communication between the alleged victim and his then-girlfriend at the time, because the prosecution objected to this, though. The judge did side with the defense. What do you see in the defense strategy to preserve all of these text messages between them?
Well, I think they're going to probe and try to attack the young man. Now, let me say at the outset, I think he has a lot of courage to go forward with this. Many years ago, there were many rape victims, females, that couldn't go forward because their families or they felt, they just couldn't take what was coming, and that would be an attack from the defense on their credibility, their truthfulness, and their whole person. So he's willing to go forward with it, obviously. The case has proceeded with a lot of caution on all sides, meaning it went through the process. There was not a rush to judgment here. I think that what you're going to find from the prosecution standpoint, much like the Bill Cosby case, they're going to try to get other people to say this is a pattern that he is engaged in.
And in the meantime, they wanted to make sure that none of these text messages are deleted.
That's correct, because it's fair game, and I think that's a correct ruling. Because, look, this kid was starstruck by this guy. He was offering him drinks. What happened? They're going to say it was consensual. He's going to say, it was like a young man like myself meeting John Wayne, having a drink with him. I never feel, the young man's going to say, I didn't think that kind of thing was going to happen, but it did. Now, the question also is there were witnesses, but I think those people have scattered to the winds, and I don't think they want to get involved, so.
And a lot of the evidence, it seems, is going to hinge on this video. There's a Snapchat video that this young man took. The defense has already said at no point did the victim in this case say no to Kevin Spacey. In fact, he took video of the incident on Snapchat.
But I think that the prosecution is going to say, like any kid at that age with a superstar in front of you who
you're going to take video.
You might do that. That's normal. And you also might freeze in a crowded location.
Sure. Could the defense argue, though, that it would be obvious to Kevin Spacey that this young man was taking a video, and therefore it shows that he didn't necessarily have a criminal state of mind, that if he had seen him taking the video of him doing what he was doing, he would have stopped?
And that will be the crux of the matter. When did these things happen? Did one happen before the other? But there's no question that if this young man has the courage enough to go forward with this case, he should be listened to, and I think he will be listened to. What I don't like from a standpoint is I don't want to see the case prejudged, but I think it's a fact that others across the country and in the entertainment world have said he's committed acts like this in the past.
Well, and as speaking to that, this was the case that sort of cracked the whole thing open and brought his career down, but more than a dozen other men have accused Kevin Spacey of unwanted touching. This is the first criminal case. So are those other allegations admissible in court?
Well, that's always the question. If they have, in the Cosby case, for instance, 5 women were allowed to testify.
Right.
And they were either past the statute of limitations or had filed civil suits or whatever. I'm not sure what the background is in the Spacey case, but there's no question, like in the Weinstein case, you're going to have the same type of situation where you can, in certain circumstances, as long as it's not overly prejudicial.
It's got to be the same modus operandi.
Yeah, right. It's got to be the same modus, and it can't be, the probative value cannot be overtaken by prejudice. In other words, if it's too prejudicial, they won't get in. But if there's meat there and there's probative value, they can get those things in sometimes.
Very quickly, do you see this going to trial?
I do. I mean, and then where it goes to trial is another question. And what the stakes are. I mean, I don't see Spacey pleading guilty, and he's, you know, already made video of himself playing his character from House of Cards, saying, you know, did you judge me yet, or blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. I don't think he's the type that, you know, I think the other shoe may fall somewhere, though. That's the thing for him. If somebody else proceeds with a civil or criminal case, then he's got big problems. That could
so
affect
the next hearing is March, but he is not required to be there. So we will see what happens.
And that's not unusual. You know, many times, for instance, if I have a case and I have somebody who's working, I'd say may be excused at the pretrial conference. That's a very routine thing. But what I wondered why they didn't take his passport.
Well, thank you, Phil. We will have you come back to talk about it more as it proceeds and goes on. Thanks
Always
so much
good to
for
see
coming
you.
in tonight.
Good to see you, too.
Eric, over to you for tomorrow's weather.